In this video, you'll understand what really happens when the self-dynam, that voice that thinks it's you, collapses. We're not talking about beliefs, but structure, how the observer and the observed stop being two, and how the very act of perceiving changes the experience. You'll see what science calls the collapse of the wave function, and what ancient traditions called Nirvana, two names for the same phenomenon. The moment when consciousness realizes it was always the field, not the particle. The collapse of the self isn't destruction, it's revelation. It's the instant when the mind stops measuring itself and rests in the silence that holds everything. Welcome to Silent Quantum. We begin with what we call I. It feels solid, continuous, unquestionable. But like an interference pattern, it's born from the overlap of memories, predictions, and stimuli blending and canceling each other at high speed until they seem like one thing. The brain, a probability processor, creates a narrative center to navigate the world. Useful, yes, but not ultimate. When you observe this center with neutral attention, you realize it isn't an entity but an effect, an emerging figure shaped by the flow of information. Here's the breaking point. What is the one who observes? In physics, measurement links the system and the observer. Internally, when attention turns inward, it reveals that there isn't a someone behind the eyes, only the act of observing itself. Consciousness doesn't appear as an object. It's the space where objects appear. When attention rests in that space without seeking a center, the narrator becomes transparent, and the sense of separation begins to dissolve. Think of the double-slit experiment. Without detection, you see wave patterns. With detection, fixed trajectories. The mind behaves the same way. When you watch your thoughts with attachment, they collapse into rigid identities. I'm like this, I'm angry. But when you observe without clinging, the flow stays open, flexible, less bound by automatic scripts. It's not that the mind changes lab physics. It's that the lab of the mind runs on strikingly similar principles. The quality of observation shapes the kind of form that manifests. Here enters the ego's decoherence. In an environment overloaded with stimuli, notifications, comparisons, micro-judgments, the mind keeps measuring itself and the world, collapsing into the same outcomes: habits, reactivity, repetition. Regaining degrees of freedom means reducing unnecessary measurements, noticing the urge to label, pausing for 3 seconds, letting the narrative lose energy. Tiny moments of non-reaction restore coherence, like increasing the Q factor of an oscillator until the signal stabilizes. The instrument for this is silence. Not a dead void, but a reduction of noise that reveals the signal. Practically speaking, focus on your breath, your body's weight, constant background sounds. Label thought when one arises and return. Within seconds, mental entropy drops and your perceptual bandwidth widens. Soundscapes with little variation, slow visual transitions, and minimal lighting help the nervous system settle into a rhythm of presence. It's not mysticism. It's contextual engineering in service of attention. This inner silence mirrors the quantum vacuum, the fertile nothing, where fluctuations arise and dissolve. In the physical field, virtual particles bubble from the ground state. In consciousness, sensations, images, and ideas emerge from the attentive background. The common mistake is to confuse the fluctuations with the field. Awakening means remembering you are the space that allows, not the contents that pass. When this matures, the fear of losing forms fades, because the background doesn't tremble when the forms do. Then something delicate unfolds in relationships. With less identity noise, openness to others grows. Science calls it entanglement, a deep correlation between systems. In human experience, we call it empathy. When brains sync, attention aligns, and defenses drop. You don't try to be compassionate, you directly perceive interdependence. The boundary between me and you becomes porous. Listening deepens and connection turns into a fine-tuned adjustment of frequencies. From here, the word nirvana gains precision. It's not a gain, but a removal. The combustion of attachment and aversion stops. The compulsive self-measurement ends. Cognitively, you stop projecting the past onto the present. Practically, it starts in microdoses. The micro-death of the self when you notice an impulse and don't follow it. When you delay a reaction. When you walk without naming. Each pause opens behavioral superpositions, multiple possible responses where before there was only reflex. The body is your antenna in this laboratory. Interoception, Heartbeat, temperature, tension, anchors your attention in nonverbal data. The insula lights up, regulation improves, and the self-network grows quieter. Feel your heart without trying to control it. Observe your breath without shaping it. This is resonance. Tuned systems transfer energy with less loss. When mind and body align, the subjective field becomes more stable. Presence grows denser and calmer. Simple structures help stabilize that focus. Basic geometries, mantras, and sound drones work as attention resonators, frames that organize silence without capturing it. Use form to transcend form. The symbol guides you until consciousness organizes itself and the frame can dissolve. It's the principle of emergent order. When conditions are right, complex systems find coherence effortlessly. From this contact with unity, an ethics beyond rules is born. If harm vibrates through the same field that you are, hurting loses meaning. Mirror neurons, synchrony, and collective dynamics show in labs what mystics have always said: we are interconnected. Good becomes that which maintains coherence. Evil, the noise that destabilizes it. It's not moralisms, it's a perception of harmony. And living, life becomes lighter. The forms remain, bills, deadlines, roles, but you stop confusing them with who you are. Full action, minimal attachment. Like a curious researcher, you take part in the experiment without demanding a specific outcome. The mind stops resisting uncertainty and starts cooperating with it. The energy once spent on control turns into creativity. The everyday becomes a laboratory of presence. Once this settles, the urge to explain fades. Words, like measurements, always collapse the field into concepts. The deepest understanding is silence, not absence, but presence containing all possibilities. It's the ground state of consciousness, nothing to add, nothing to remove. The observer and the observed merge into a single process, and the universe recognizes itself through what you are now. If something in you recognized this place, try doing nothing for a few seconds and just feel the next breath happening on its own. That's where the collapse of the self begins, not as a grand event, but as a habit of silence between two impulses. Repeat these micro-practices for 7 days and notice what changes. Pauses before reacting, walking without naming, feeling your heartbeat for a minute, using a simple symbol to hold your focus until it holds itself. If this dive resonated with you, let silence do its work. When you're ready to go deeper, return and re-watch. You'll notice layers you didn't see before. Subscribe to Silent Quantum for the next part of this exploration. The observer, free will, and noise. How far does your choice really go? And remember, consciousness doesn't awaken through noise. It awakens through silence.